Why Do Women Wash the Dishes by Philomena and Golondrino. In the town of Santa Rosa, there once lived a couple named Hugo and Imelda. The neighbors familiarly called Imelda as Kamaldang and Hugo Kaugong. Every mealtime, they quarreled over the chore of washing the dishes. One day, just as they were finishing their lunch, Kaugong announced, "I am not going to wash the dishes anymore." "Who says so?" asked Kamaldang. "I say so. I worked so hard in the field this morning. I'm not going to wash any dish." "And who, Mr. Hugo, is going to wash the dishes?" she asked. "You," he said in a much lower tone. "You are the woman. You should do all the housework." "And what do you do?" asked Kamaldang. "You tie the carabao to the reeds in the field and then you lie down on the grass, watch it graze? You call that hard work? I cook, clean the house, wash your clothes, I scrub the floor. I do all the work that only slaves do. And yet you even refuse to help me wash the plate which you have eaten?" Kamaldang's voice was now raised a high pitch and her tears close to her eyelids at Kaugong and at her broom. She grabbed the broom. She raised the broom to strike him, crying, You lazy man." Kaugong ducked under the table. "Don't," he cried. "Don't strike me." "Come out from under the table, you coward," ordered Kamaldang. "Lay down your broom," said Kaugong. All right, come out." Kamaldang put her broom behind the door. Kaugong returned to his seat opposite to her at her table. "What have you to say?" asked Kamaldang. "Let's stop quarreling over the plates. Let's have a wager. The first one of us who will speak after I said begin will wash the dishes. Always." "Only that?" said Kamaldang. "The first one who talks will always wash the plates and bowls and pots and pans. Always." "Right," said Kaugong. "If you ever say just one word to me or to anybody or to anything after I had said begin, you will always wash the dishes." "That's easy. I can keep my mouth shut even for a week." "You can't. You even talk to your carabao." "All right, are you ready?" asked Kaugong. Kamaldang sat upright in front of him across the table. She nodded her head, compressed her lips, and Kaugong said, "Begin." They both fell silent. They sat at the table looking at each other across the unwashed plates and bowls and spoons. They did not like to leave each other for the fear that one would talk to himself without the other's hearing. They sat there just staring. Soon, the cat began to meow for its food. Neither Kamaldang nor Kaugong paid attention to its meowing. Kaugong pretended nothing had happened. He continued to sit still, and so did Kamaldang. Soon, it was getting late in the afternoon, but they went on sitting mutely at the lunch table. Their eyes were tired from staring hard at each other. A neighbor called, "Compadre Kaugong." "Oh, compadre." Kaugong did not answer. The neighbor called again, "Comadre Maldang." "Yoo-hoo! Comadre Maldang. Compadre Kaugong, may I borrow your axe?" Kamaldang did not answer. Kaugong looked at her silently. "Perhaps nobody is home," they heard the neighbor say to himself. "But why did they leave the ladder at the door? They usually remove the ladder when they go away. Well, I'll just go up and get the axe and return it later." When the neighbor went up to the bamboo ladder, he was surprised to see Kamaldang and Kaugong sitting silently at the table, where the plates had dried up with leftovers. He hurried toward them. Kaugong neither moved nor talked. The neighbor repeated his question. He shook Kaugong's shoulder. Kaugong let him shake him, closing his lips tighter. The neighbor turned to Kamaldang. "Speak, comadre. What happened?" He shook her shoulders too. She pushed him roughly aside but did not speak. The neighbor was alarmed. He did not get the axe but ran out to the rest of the neighbors. He told them that something terrible had happened to his compadre Ugong and compadre Maldang. The neighbors gathered at Kamaldang's dining room. They took turns trying to make them speak, but the two continued to sit staring at each other in silence. Kamaldang looked at her husband threateningly for a moment, then closed her eyes. Kaugong knew that she did so to avoid looking at her neighbors. He also closed his eyes and ignored everyone who had come up to his house. Kamaldang was very angry with her compadre's interference, but she dared not to speak her mind. She pretended to be asleep. The compadre was very much worried. He ran to the village herb man. The herb man came, and when he saw the motionless, silent husband and wife sitting at the table, he declared that they were bewitched. He spread a woven bud mat in the center of the sala and asked the bewitched couple to lie down. Kaugong obediently lay down and closed his eyes. He curled up and went to sleep, but Kamaldang refused to get up from where she sat at the dining table. The herb-man said, "Ah, the spirit that has taken possession of her is very stubborn. I must break its spell." He cut the nut into 9 pieces. He spread a little lime on each betel leaf, rolled them and wrapped them around each piece of areca nut. He now had 9 rings of leaves. "This represents the lost spirit of the couple," he said. He chewed the leaf and nut. When he had chewed it, he spat it on his palm, dipped a forefinger on the other hand into the nut, colored saliva, and marked with it a cross on the foreheads of Kaugong and Kamaldang. Kaugong did not seem to feel the old man's finger on his forehead. Kamaldang caught the man's forefinger and twisted it. The old herb doctor cried, "Aray!" and pulled back his hand. He moved toward Kaugong, who was lying down, calling his name softly and slowly several times. "Come, Ugong! Come back, Ugong!" Kaugong did not move nor speak. "Kamaldang, come home to your body now," chanted the old man. Kamaldang did not answer. The old man said, "This is the first witchery of its kind that I have met here. By their silence, I believe they are dead. Their spirits, driven away by the witch, have left their bodies. The only thing to do in order to keep their souls in peace and to prevent this witchery craft from spreading among us is to bury them." The herb man ordered some of the men to look for boards and make 2 coffins immediately before the malady would go to them. In no time, the 2 coffins were finished. The herb man asked the men gathered around to lift the couple into the coffins. "We shall bury them at sunrise," he said. The man easily lifted Kaugong and places him inside the coffin. Surely, he thought to himself, he would win the wager. He would not be afraid of being buried. Why? He would just get out of the grave when the neighbors are gone. He thought everything going on was great and fun, and he was enjoying himself. How he would frighten them all when he returned from his grave. The herb man approached Kamaldang. Although her eyes were closed, she had been listening to his directions. She was afraid that he would surely force her into the coffin if she did not tell him to go away. But she did not want to talk. She hoped her husband would object to the men's lifting her into the coffin. "Surely, Hugo will not let me be buried tomorrow. I'm afraid to sleep in that coffin tonight. No, I will not let them lift me into it," she thought to herself. But she did not hear Kaugong speak. She opened her eyes just as the herb man, aided by 2 other men, put his arms around her to lift her up from the chair. Kamaldang pushed the men, got up to her feet and shouted, "Don't touch us! Get out! Get out of my house! Shame on you for coming here, meddling with our lives!" Kaugong leaped to his feet. He also shouted, "You talk first!" He jumped about clapping his hands and saying to the astonished neighbors, "She talked first. We had a wager. Now she will always wash the dishes." He ran out with his neighbors, still shouting happily and saying, "I won. I knew I would win. Now I'll never wash the dishes." And that's the story why women always wash the dishes.